What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify, and check our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today we are revisiting an old friend. Our guest today came on my radar about 2005, 2006, courtesy of the South by Southwest Music Festival here in Austin, Texas. He's a singer. He's a fashion designer. He's got his own clothing line. He's just an all-around cool guy. Loves horror movies, loves rock and roll. Cool dude. We're glad to have him with us today. And Jason, I know you've spent some time touring with
Well,
Chad.
first off, let's say his name. Yeah, Chad Cherry is who we're talking to today. Yeah, frontman for the Las Vegas and the Claws and whatever other project he's got that he's keeping a secret. The guy is kind of a steamroller. He's fun to talk to. He's just the nicest guy in the room wherever he is, and he's well loved and respected with whomever's been in a room with him before. I've had the pleasure, my band Broken Teeth, touring with the Las Vegas and Chad Cherry, and all of the things that we're saying amplify them by 10. The guy's great, excellent frontman and singer. Today he's going to tell us about, a tour that the Las Vegas did with Motley Crue, his hanging out with Nikki Sixx, a little bit about his influences and what influences him to write songs, new projects, and some of his clothing line and stuff like that. The guy is awesome. Chad Cherry, we're glad to have him here today on the Talk Louder podcast.
Welcome, Chad Cherry, to the Talk Louder podcast. How are you, man? It's good to see you.
Man, it's good to see you guys, too. It's been too damn long.
I know. Yeah. How long has it been? Let's try and do the math real quick.
Let's not do any
Well, a
math.
couple weeks feels like a couple years feels like a couple weeks nowadays, man.
Yeah. I did the math a little bit before we started taping, trying to recall when I first met you, and I think I'm going to say it was back around 2005, 2006. And actually, my first introduction to you was, in a roundabout kind of way, is connected to Jason here, because this right here,
wow,
was left on the Broken Teeth tour bus. And when I was on the bus one time, the guys in Broken Teeth
you're
were
welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess.
Yeah. He stole it from you, man.
The guys on the bus said,
Hey, I need that back. You're making me look like shit. I got my autographed freaking...
Great.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well...
That's going to go for at least $15 on eBay, man.
Well, I'm going to sell it right after this episode.
I thought that's what I paid for it at the merch booth.
Oh, man.
I stood in line to get it signed and then messed up and left it on the bus.
And now I have it. Yeah. So anyway,
Merry Christmas, Dave. Merry Christmas. Yeah. Happy birthday.
This CD was left behind on the Broken Teeth tour bus, and I one of the guys gave it to me and said, "Hey, we were out on the road, and I don't know if you guys played a gig together or you just bumped into each other or whatever, but you obviously crossed paths. This ended up on the bus. It ended up in my stereo, and then I became a fan and just waited anxiously for you guys to come back to town, and you did at South by Southwest, and we quickly connected, and I was at every show I could get to, and we became friends. And I think that goes back to about 2006, I want to say.
That sounds absolutely correct, actually.
Yeah,
that was a great year.
Yes.
Yeah, you were one of those bands that came through town, and we're lucky enough in Austin, we have South by Southwest, where thousands of bands from all over the world come to town and basically move in for a week. And inevitably,
your place.
Yeah.
You're foolish enough to become friends with us. Now we're like, hey, where's the pizza, Dave? Where's the beer?
Now I'm feeding them, and yeah, exactly.
Fire up the grill.
we had a great visit. They came to my house one time and pulled up outside. My son Dash was about 3 years old at the time, and he was
I
just
remember.
I could tell he was just enamored with these dudes. He's like, who are all these long hair freaky dudes in my house that Dad knows? And little did
No,
he
he
know.
is a long-haired freaky dude.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But
how
these
does
are
that
different
happen?
guys.
Dave, tell us how that happens.
Oh, well, I mean, look at my background. Yeah.
Look at his dad.
Look at my friends.
Look at what we're
The
doing
apple
here.
doesn't
Right,
fall
that
too
was-
far from the tree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't mean literal, but I'll listen to you tell the story again.
No,
So
they just,
I wanna-
the guys came over to the house and we barbecued in the backyard, and Dash was getting a kick out of having this band at his house,
Yeah.
And anyway,
That's called good parenting. Is all
yeah.
that is.
It is.
Mhm.
It really
So the
is.
Las Vegas, I remember seeing him and being totally impressed with, not only the music, but Chad here is an amazing front man. If you guys have never seen him in action, he's like, Chad's one of these guys that throws himself into it all the way, man. He is not a shy dude, man. And he's everything you want in a rock and roll front man. And so he's got this charisma that, you start watching and you just have to be a fan after that.
Chad, why don't you tell us how the Las Vegas started, or just basically how you started?
Well, how the Las Vegas started was actually really cool. I was living in Michigan at the time, and I was on tour with this band called the Nasties, and I ran into a band called the Crank County Daredevils.
Okay, we'll talk more about them later, I'm sure.
Yeah, and became good friends with those guys, and I moved to Chicago, and Billy Velvet actually got a hold of the Arling brothers, and he was like, Chad Cherry moved to town. He's like, the guy's the lead singer, but he's not cheesy. It's like, you got to check him out. And I went to see the Las Vegas before they had a singer at, I think it was the Congress Theater, and it was a roller derby event, and they were kind of doing the intermission or whatnot. And I went to see them, and they were eyeballing me. I was eyeballing them, and we ended up hanging out. We went to the Liars Club afterwards, and I kind of was like, you guys are like the coolest band ever, but you need a singer. And then it kind of went from there, and we hit the ground running real fast.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, we didn't waste any time. I mean, they already had music recorded, and just started like doing my homework, and we gelled real fast. And God, from there, we've kind of done a whole lot of things. That was probably 2005, maybe the beginning of 2005.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for those who haven't seen the Las Vegas or Chad in any of his bands for that matter, one of the things I've always admired about you is that you have all the obvious rock influences as a front man. I can see a little bit of Iggy Pop. I can see the Steven Tyler. I can see the Chris Robinson. But you also have a lot of what I would call sort of a pop star influences. I think of Prince. I think of even Lady Gaga, these big over-the-top personalities that have this image. Is that fair to say that you're equal parts rock and roll, equal parts showbiz?
I think like anybody that has to get up on stage and do their thing should probably like have a very wide reference of influences. And I'm sure Lady Gaga and obviously Prince has too. And I mean, rock and roll is pretty much like the bloodstream, but pop music is pretty interesting at times as well. The older stuff, more than the newer stuff for me. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to be bored when you see somebody get up on stage. And how many bands do you see where you're like, oh my God, why did I even come out tonight? This is like, I'm bored.
Right. It's painful.
So
right.
I just personally don't want to be bored myself. So
yeah, I'm going to interrupt here and say I think that this is an interesting topic by way of pure accidental, introduction by Dave here. That I feel like, yeah, you have all your influences. It doesn't matter where they come from. You have to get them somehow and have these sort of gauges of when to turn them on as you perform, work the room. There's all of these little things going on in your head when you do it until they're just second nature. Dave's right. You were a superb front man. I see you work the room. You know how to move. You're a great singer. And these are all of these things that I feel are natural to you, but they come from somewhere, is the point. Now, let's talk about somebody who might have been a little rough around the edges in an entirely different kind of music, other than I still call it rock and roll. Let's talk about James Hetfield from Metallica. You think about from when he was about 16 and 17, for a second he was just the front man. Then he started playing guitar and fronting, and there was even rumors of them hiring a front man because he felt like he didn't have the things quickly enough that we're talking about right here. So when you think about where does someone like James Hetfield, obviously from the thrash metal world, but you still got to work the audience the same way Lady Gaga does. You see where I'm saying? It could be anybody. Absolutely. It doesn't, David Lee Roth, whatever, throw Prince, it doesn't matter. There has to be connection between, the front person and the audience. You can't just go out and go, well, this song is called Free Bird. You can't do that. There has to be this connection. And obviously a band like Metallica, they figured it out early on. But I bet it's rough when you first start. Can you tell us about when you first started and how old you were when you realized, oh shit, I got to get my act together because I'm boring myself because well, it could have been because you were so young.
Right.
I even go back to I didn't know what to wear. What do lead singers wear? And so I tried so many things, spandex and baseball catcher shin guards on my arms. And there's pictures. It's ridiculous. Long hair, short hair, big hair, eyeliner, no eyeliner. It was especially questionable as to is my sort of personality fitting the music too. Tell us a little bit about how you got that. And I'm kind of pointing somewhere that we're going to get into anyway about fashion and about your clothing line. Mm-hmm. So start when you started out young enough to realize, oh man, I need some fireworks up here,
Yeah. Oh, I remember it exactly.
I knew
when that
would.
happened.
Yeah. Because me too. Right.
Yeah. Oh, well, as a kid in high school, I started out playing bass, and from there it was, anti-authority, everything, question everything. So punk rock music was definitely the path. And you start playing shows, write songs, you go in and out of musicians, you learn a lot. And then kind of as a joke, my friend Danny Smash, who was in the Las Vegas, he was in this kind of glam, almost a cover band called the Nasties. And they needed somebody to sing for him. I'm like, well, I don't have anything to do right now. So I stepped up to the mic and played a couple shows. And then after the third show, I noticed that there was a whole lot of people there, more than usual for anything that I've ever done. And I noticed that everyone was really paying attention.
Uh-oh.
So after the show, I'm like, I got to stop smoking cigarettes. I got to learn how to sing. I got to take this serious. I got to do this for real because these people are watching me. And I think when you get up there and people come to see you, it's sort of your responsibility to, well, I guess you can do whatever you want. There's no rules to anything. But me personally, I think you have a responsibility to, I guess, entertain these cats that are coming out to see you and paying some money or just supporting you in any way. And that's kind of what drove me to sort of get my shit together and be like, all right, well, I got to figure out the stuff. I got to really start listening to these records that I've been listening to for years. And I got to start doing my homework. And then from there, I felt like the caliber of everything just started to incline, including musicianship and really everything in life started to get better. And I started to see things more. I started to learn more. And that to me was the thing that got me to where I am right now, to be like, all right, well, someone actually is giving a shit about what you're doing. So if they like what you're doing now, just think of how good you can get and how much more they're going to like you down the road if you keep at it and keep doing your homework and keep learning lessons, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you obviously developed your style, however quickly it was, but whatever it was, it worked. And then, the Las Vegas had a pretty good run there. I was holding up an early album. This one is one of my favorites, Bad Decisions. Yeah. You got to have this record, folks, Bad Decisions. And then Whatever Gets You Off, produced by Nikki Sixx. So that was interesting. You guys you won some sort of contest that was sponsored by Guitar Center or something, and the prize was you won a bunch of gear, you won some studio time, and Nikki Sixx was not only going to produce your record, but then take you out on tour as the opening act. Tell us a little bit about that whole experience.
That was really interesting, actually. So I think it might have been one of the guitar players' sister kind of entered us into this Make Rock History contest, some Guitar Center stuff. And it was brought up at a rehearsal, and we're like, yeah, whatever, dude, whatever. Anyway, let's get back to the music, blah, blah, blah. So a couple months down the road, everyone's like, well, we got into this Guitar Center thing with Motley Crue, and we have to go do this now. I'm like, holy shit. It's for real. No kidding. I thought that was just some made up whatever, you know? So we're on tour. We get the call to go to LA and do all this stuff, right? So we go there, we audition, we play with like a bunch of different bands, and then we got picked to be in like a selective group to go on to the next level. And we were actually still on tour, and they found out that they didn't want us to do it. So we're like, oh, whatever, that's typical, like no big deal. Anyway, on to the next show. And then we get another email later saying like, no, we need you guys back in. And we were actually in Austin, Texas on tour. And it was the morning after that we had this huge party and everything. And I was a little hungover partying with you guys. And they're like, hey, we got to go back to LA to do this. And I thought it was a joke. I'm like, how funny, you know? But we went back there, and out of 8,000 bands, we kind of smoked them all and got a nice little record deal with Nikki, and got to work with Nikki quite a bit. And the coolest thing about that, the studio stuff was amazing, but going on the road with Motley Crue was really awesome, because we had done a lot of arena stuff, like sporadically here and there, and maybe like a little bit a weeks here and there, but we haven't done a full-on arena tour where it's like, okay, we're not going to Jimmy's Crab Shack after this, you know. It was just full on tour. So that was so much fun. I could probably still be doing that, actually, if they would let me.
What was it like working with Nikki? What kind of input did he have? How much time did he spend with you? Was he hands-on? Was he just sort of a name to attach to the project, or was he involved in all this?
He was amazing, man. He was just like he is a really, really cool dude. He's super smart. He is kind of like this godfather, like, dude that has like a million great ideas and some crazy ideas that I don't think the world would probably be ready for. But he's absolutely hilarious. And then he would take bits and pieces of stuff that we would have, and it was interesting to see him kind of like rip that apart and kind of paste it back together and maybe simplify some stuff. But I think we learned a lot from Nikki in the studio, and obviously he wanted us to do the best that we can without changing us a whole lot, which I thought was pretty cool, and I respected that quite a bit. But he's brilliant, man. Yeah, I mean, he was really funny. My ribs would be hurting like every night after the studio. I'd be like, my God, he's just hilarious.
I was really excited. I was really excited for you guys and proud of you guys that you won that thing, because when I heard about it, I suspected that just by the nature of the contest and the whole promotional thing or whatever, I was under the assumption they would go with a relatively safe middle of the road don't offend anybody kind of band, just for the sake of selling
right.
records or whatever. And so I thought it was cool that they saw something in you at the Las Vegas as, a real legit kick-ass rock and roll band. And I was happy that they had the fortitude to choose someone that wasn't so mainstream vanilla, So I was real pleased for you guys. So how long was that arena tour?
It was the one leg of the winter leg of the Saints of Los Angeles tour.
All right. Okay.
It might have been like over a month or something like that. I don't know. It was a long tour, but it was great. I'd still be on it if I could.
Yeah. I'm sure. We talk about this all the time on the show when bands go out and tour together. There's a lot of times there's an assumption that you just party all the time and you're all together all the time. And we know that that's not really the case. It's oftentimes your ships in the night going opposite directions on opposite schedules. But being that you spent time in the studio with Nikki and he sort of had a bit of an investment in you guys, was there any social hangout time or anything on that tour? Or was it pretty much business?
Well, we were doing a lot of interviews with him at that time. So he would always come and hang out with us either on our bus or in our dressing room and talk about like what we got going on for today or tomorrow. And then there'd just be other times where he would just show up and be like, how are you guys doing? What's going on? Are you liking it? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so he's a cool guy, man. He's just like a really cool guy. And it's strange to see like some cat that just really is larger than life. And so many people look up to him and everything to get to a level where you're like, oh, he's just kind of like this awesome, like hilarious, like big brother type.
Yeah.
That can kind of like show you what to do, but he's going to kick you in the ass and make fun of you a little bit before you do it. Yeah. Well, you got to deserve that. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it is really, really cool to see the fans and all of his fans and just how much of a powerful dude that guy has been on pop culture and other people's lives. And it was very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's an experience you'll never forget. And the Las Vegas had a good run. The albums are great. The stage show was great. For people that aren't familiar, I've always kind of thrown you in the mix with bands like, Aerosmith, GNR, maybe some Black Crowes, classic 70s rock with a little touch of maybe some 80s sort of glam rock.
Yeah.
So things seem to be up and running. So, and then they weren't. So what's the status of the Las Vegas today and whatever happened to that run of momentum?
That's kind of a good question. It's like they say it's better to burn out than fade away.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we've faded away, and I know we haven't burned out, so I don't really know where the hell we are. People say rock is dead. People say rock is alive. We never really stopped doing it. I think after a certain amount of grind, you get a little tired. Not of the music, but just of life and like the van, and things start changing. People go through divorces, people have kids, people change. And that has a lot to do with probably why we're not slamming 100% and grinding the gears. It sort of came to a point where I felt like I needed to get out of Chicago, but I didn't think that would affect the band because the band had already kind of slowed down a little bit. And we weren't really getting on those tours. That Nate was always been basically our drummer and our manager.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of like slowed down with that a little bit, and things just changed. And he had an insight on like what was what. And some clubs changed, some clubs shut down, whatnot. And we just sort of kind of like nonchalantly started to back away a little bit, not really even knowing that we were doing it.
Yeah.
And then time just goes by, and next thing you know, it's been a year, and it's been another year, and it's been another year, and we've been in contact with each other constantly. I just hung out with Nate. He had me do the Dio cancer benefit that he's in charge of. Nate's out here in Los Angeles too. And he had me come sing some Dio songs. So I'm still doing stuff. Nate's still putting me to work. Doing stuff. Adam's coming out here in September, and we're gonna hang out. And I mean, for the last couple of years, we've all gotten together out here in LA, and we have probably like 10 songs that we've demoed out here in like a practice spot that we have. Last summer, Danny came out and we recorded with Paul Wiley, who's I'm in I do music with him. We recorded a really cool song, and we have it ready to go. It's probably like the coolest Las Vegas song that we've done in a long, long time. And we're kind of just waiting to get Nate on drums on that. And then eventually I wanted to do something around Christmas time last year with it. And then, Nate's got his baby now. So he's dealing with being a dad. So I'm letting him do that for a little while, because that's pretty important stuff.
Yeah. Congratulations to Nate.
Yeah.
He's great. I mean, he's just glowing, Yeah.
Wow.
And so we've never broken up. We just let time slip by. And every day, I know all of us think about it, or social media is always talking about us and stuff still, which is very, very cool. So it's good to know that people are still wanting some music. And, from touring so much and playing, I really see like there is a little void in some people's lives, because they were used to us coming through, and like that was we were their band, and it's cool to see that's still alive. And I'm really looking forward to all of us getting together and possibly doing something. We were ready to all go into the studio and do something, and then this COVID thing happened, and we were all just like, all right, well, just we'll put it on ice for now. And so we've been very active in we're not really telling anybody what we're doing, but we got a couple songs that are ready to like be unleashed here. We just have to figure it out. And timing is, you have a bunch of like alpha like dudes, so it's like, well, I have this idea, and we're still the same as what we were when we were in our 20s. Now we're just like a lot older. We're still the same. So we're like, I have this idea, and like, well, I have this idea, and then, well, we should just do this idea. And then we just wait around, and then time goes, and things get involved, and projects happen, and life happens, but we're very much still alive. We're just kind of like hiding in the shadows still.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you're still in touch with each other, and there is still some activity, albeit it might be a little behind the scenes and maybe not as consistent as it would be if the band was everyone's number one priority. But I know there's an audience out there for the Las Vegas, and so I hope one day we get some new music and possibly a run of dates from you guys. So bring us up. One of the things you've been occupying your time with is this new band called The Claws, and you sent me the album a year ago, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago or something. And I'll tell you, I think that record got more spins at my place than probably anything else that I got that last year. I loved it, man. It's awesome. It's a bit different than the Las Vegas. I kind of compare it to like the Rolling Stones during that period in the late 70s, early 80s, when they almost kind of flirted with disco a little bit.
And country.
I need to hear that. I'm behind on that. I don't know that. That sounds great. It's
awesome. It's like it's somewhere between Some Girls and Emotional Rescue, and maybe some Tattoo You thrown in. Yeah. But Chad, tell us, how did that band come together? Bring us up to speed on that. I think you've got another record in the works. Yeah. And just tell us about The Claws in general, because it's a great band.
Gary and I have been friends since I I think I met him in Cleveland, but he's originally from Pittsburgh. And just from being on the road, he was always out to our shows. He moved out to California years and years ago. So every time we were out here, I'd run into him and we just remembered each other. And he's always been a cool cat. And I always enjoyed his other bands that he was in. Adam and Arling and I, we used to listen to his stuff when we were on the road. So I was saying to him when on a vacation before I was living out in Los Angeles that, you know, when I do move out here, you and I should just start to play music, no expectations. It's just like do acoustic guitars and we'll go from there. Yeah. Not trying to like take over the world or anything. Just like we're friends. So let's play music together. And it started out with us like acoustic guitars and like the wineries and all these like little dive bars around LA. And it was really fun, but we got bored with that. And then that's when we decided to like take it electric. And then from there, I think Gary's songwriting and like his guitar playing, he got away from his acoustic. So he started to really like, there was no holds bar after that. So we would get together and we would come together with lyrics and he comes up with like all these like killer riffs. And we sort of just like put the puzzle pieces together. And for the most part, Gary just will like, just be like, hey, check this out. And he'll have it all done. And I'm like, well, I don't really need to even do anything on that. Do that again. Cause I'm lazy. I don't want to work very hard. So there's a lot of creativity. That's nonstop. And I think we want to be like groovy more than like bashy, you know? And I mean, his favorite band is like the Replacements and the Rolling Stones, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, my favorite thing is like horror movies and the Rolling Stones, you know? Yeah. So there we go. And
that works. And like horror movie, groovy disco, you know, zombie dance.
That's pretty much some werewolves and vampires.
Yeah. This, I got to hear this stuff. This sounds great. I'll
send you a record.
Yeah, the album's called No Connection.
No Connection.
Right.
Okay.
And it's awesome.
Actually, here we go.
There you go.
I'll send this to you.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
It's I got blue too.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice.
I love it.
So where can people get that? It's still available, obviously.
I think Gary's got it up on the website. There's www.theclaws, Los Angeles, The Claws.
Right.
I don't even know. Again.
They'll find it.
Technology.
That's what Google is for.
Yeah. You know? You folks need to go Google it and check it out. It's really a good album. It's got sort of a vintage feel, and as Chad said, it's kind of groovy and funky and rockin', and it's kind of got a late 70s vibe. And it stayed in my stereo for weeks and weeks, and I just fell in love with it. I was happy that if you weren't going to do the Las Vegas, then I was glad to see that you did something really kick-ass. So
I'm just glad that you were not idle. It doesn't sound like any of the Las Vegas guys are idle at all.
No,
but
we love music.
Yeah, well, of course. And as a writer and a singer and a frontman and an artist, just blurry the word artist, and it's just, you know, multifaceted personality that you are.
Thanks. I'm just a fan.
Yeah. You're a fan of all this cool stuff, and when you step into the light, there's a little bit for everyone. I think there's a lot of like underground. There's a lot of punk rock. There's a little bit of, you know, you can throw some dark tone, but you also have this sort of like bright light within as well. And not to go hippie shit, I think that there is some destiny with the people that you've met on the road, whether it be things through winning a battle of the bands with the Nikki thing, or just, you know, meeting some guys and, you know, in Las Vegas as, you know, way back, and then literally overnight becoming this you put wheels on it, and you went on the road, and you played the shitty bars, and you kissed babies and shook hands, or you shook babies and kissed hands, right?
Yep.
And that makes it real when you do that. It doesn't matter if you got money in your pocket when you get home. At that point, you went out and did the work because you love doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Let's focus on yeah, and you
100%.
Yeah, and you love it. You're drinking the punch every day. You say, where's my punch? I'm going to drink the blood from the chalice again today.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter as long as I get an hour or so on stage. I feel my day is perfect.
Yeah,
and I feel like you guys were one of those bands. And the thing with is it Gary from the Claws?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like it's people like him that you met along the way. This is where the hippie shit comes in.
I love it.
The destiny, right? It's like you guys weren't planning on one day we're going to be in a band together. It was not. It was unspoken.
No.
So there was this sort of like pheromone or a cloud or this thing that the air that you guys would create together was going to be like something.
And that's sorry. True.
There's probably more people that you met on the road that the same thing has happened. It's probably not just Gary. I'm saying that this is a thing. I hate to say metaphysical, but that's some more hippie shit. And whether you believe that shit or not,
I do.
I just think that you work hard and you make this tangible. You don't see anything, but there's a heavy weight there.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, when you're like, wow, that last show was awesome, but this show sucks. At least it's like my friend Will, he told me it's better to have something to look at than to not have anything at all. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And you learn from it too. And you know what you need to do. It's the same as when you're creating Chad. Like when you were in a cover band, next thing you know, you're having to do it for real. And next thing you know, you're singing your own music. And then right after that, you're on the road. So it's kind of real.
It's something that people, they think it's really, really cool because they've never done it. And, at certain times I'm like, well, you have this big mansion that you live in. And I just live in a van and I haven't washed my hair in a month. I'm like, how do you think I'm cool? And then you realize that you're doing some shit that nobody else either has the balls to do or just doesn't know how to do it. You're not doing it by yourself. You're doing it with these family members that you kind of are forced into a family with these musicians, Unfortunately, with me, I've been completely, I'm either blessed or I just know how to weed out the assholes. But all of my friends have been my friends forever. Well, the Las Vegas guys, even though we haven't played music in a while, we all still talk and it's they're my brothers.
Yeah, they're not heavy. They're your brother. They're not expensive. They're not expensive friends.
That's right.
If it costs
they're
you,
not expensive friends. They're cheap.
If it costs you, they're supposed to be. Friends are not supposed to be. You're supposed to be connected somehow. There's no change of money. Your money's no good here. That's where that comes from. So
true.
Yeah.
And see, Jason, because you've done it on a massive scale. I totally gotta say that I appreciate that. That's amazing. And this gets back to, we wouldn't be talking right now if we hadn't have been eating shit sandwiches on the road for years. I would have never ran into you. I would have never ran into Dave or anything.
Yeah.
So to me,
everything that you're saying and that we as the three of us are saying and sort of agreeing on, sort of three musketeers, wearing at least boxer shorts at the same time with torches and pitchforks. That's what it takes. We did the work. There you go. We did the work. You stuck your neck out there for rock and roll patted you on the back, and that's all you needed.
Yeah.
If you would have gone out there and gotten butt hurt because you only made $20 that night, you're lucky because that's the bartender who was the only member of the audience. He gave you his tip jar.
Right.
Things like that happen all the time. And you know what? They're going to happen again. And
Absolutely.
we know that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're okay with that.
Well, I think we figured out what we were made of early on in the game. So after you get the shit kicked out of you, you kind of like understand and you almost respect it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, there was no like finish line to it. Like one day it's going to be awesome. Next day could be an absolute garbage.
Yeah.
You know, with anything in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
we're not talking about rock and roll and the road and, you know, how hard it might be to write a great song. You're always trying to write a great song. That never, you don't write one great song and go, that was awesome. You know, you don't rest. You got to try to beat it.
Exactly.
Yeah. People don't think like that. They're not thinking
like food.
about it like that.
You got to keep eating, man. You got to keep digesting it and seeing what you're doing, what you're made out of, and what you can do. And I mean, I'm like you guys. I love challenge. If there wasn't a challenge, you'd just be doing the same shit over and over again. You got to kind of like, you gotta have something that takes you out of your comfort box more than just a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And some people like to live out of it. And, and you know,
so I wanted to ask you something, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if I heard this through the rumor mill or the grapevine or where this got lodged in my brain, but I seem to recall at one point that Matt Sorum, the drummer for Guns N' Roses and the Cult, and I heard that at one point he was in Velvet Revolver as well. I heard at one point that he was sniffing around, kind of interested in working with you. Is that did I make that up or is that true?
We did a show with I forget the name of his band, but it was him and his wife. We did a support show for them, and it was a Jack Daniels event, and it was this huge party, and we opened up for them. And they played, and he's like, "Wow, you know, really like your everything. I love the On Bad video is awesome." And he's like, "Yeah, I want to get like in contact with you." So like, how cool is that? Months go by, and then I just kind of get an email from one of his business partners or something, talking about how like he's interested in me, and like Scott Weiland had left the band from Velvet Revolver, and he likes your style, he likes your singing, thinks you're a cool dude. We'll get in contact with you later. So I'm like shitting my pants. I'm like, whoa, well, that's a pretty cool email. But then I never heard anything back, and like that whole thing kind of Duff went to go do Loaded, and Slash found Miles Kennedy, and you know, Matt was just ended up playing with his, I think he's still doing music with his wife at the time and whatnot. But it was a cool email.
Well, I think it speaks to the caliber of frontman that you are. If a guy who was in a band with Axl Rose and then with Scott Weiland has his eye on you, and again, it sort of reaffirms what I've been saying all along, that a guy like Matt Sorum, who's worked with guys like that, isn't calling a slouch. You know, he's calling somebody that's got the magic and the fire, and
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Real quick, before we shift gears, I wanted to ask you about Razor Candy, another one of your projects, and I think you know, from what I've seen, it's a little more on the darker side, kind of. I don't know. I don't want to put you in a box, but it kind of reminds me at times of like Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails, more along that vibe than say the Las Vegas. Tell us where that is right now.
That's funny that you said that, because it's just Paul Wiley and myself, and Paul is the guitar player for Marilyn Manson. So that kind of like has a little bit to do with like the style and vibe. And I mean, I've always loved those records. I just love the production on all of it. Just love the attitude and the style of it. So we kind of are dipping into the darker side of what we like, you know, instead of the Stranger Things spooky stuff, we're kind of going full on Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more on the darker side for sure, and a little bit maybe more on the psychedelic furs, industrial, Nine Inch Nails, something or other.
There you go.
80s like industrial rock, but
machines,
but super pop. Like cheap Trick pop. When I say pop music, whenever I say pop music, I'm talking about Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about anything else.
Well, I love the band name, by the way. Razor Candy. That's just awesome.
Yeah, I would wear that T-shirt.
Right? Wouldn't you? I mean, see, that's the value of a great band name. Even if you've never heard of them, you go buy it because look at that. Wouldn't you buy that at the store if you saw that?
Yes, I would.
Chad's holding up the album right now.
We're obsessed with horror movies, obviously.
I love
this is the drive-in theater, and we got Over the Edge playing. The movie, Matt Dillon movie,
of course,
playing in there, and it's all the cars, and we got the storm coming on in and whatnot.
Right.
But we literally will sit down, and how Paul and I come up with Razor Candy songs. He's like, "Hey, I got this really cool guitar riff." I'm like, "Cool, come on over." And that's all we'll have, and then we'll sit down and we'll watch 80s horror movies, and we'll pick pieces and things from that we like. Put it all down, and like 7 hours later, we'll have a song. That's how we write. So that's how we wrote that whole record, and that's how we're writing stuff right now.
I'm going to interrupt here. Exactly the scenario that you came up with is pretty much how I write lyrics, but it's not specific to one genre of movie or book I'm reading or whatever. But if there's a phrase or a line or something I can steal without stealing because it's just a phrase or
you're just borrowing.
Yeah. And
you can steal a little bit.
That can turn into a whole song. That can turn into a lyric. If I write a melody using that piece, because I've got stacks of folders and pieces of paper and bar napkins that are years old, some probably decades old.
I'm coming over. We're starting a band.
Awesome. Stuff I heard on the road, stuff I got from movies, but little bits and pieces. You can make a pretty awesome ransom note with the shit I've got.
Sure can.
This stuff, exactly the way that you explained it, you had a partner in crime, you put on these movies, you borrow, you put it together. This is a great sort of like, I don't know, writing exercise, not to be a music coach, but that's a writing exercise.
It is.
The next thing you know, you've got this thing that you're in love with. That all it took was a little bit of fun homework, because it's not really work when you're watching. You're drinking the punch again. Ooh, this is my favorite Wicked Kool-Aid. I'm drinking this, and next thing you know, you have visions. And like you said, it took 7 hours, but you've got this awesome new tune that you're proud of. And
created something that was never there before.
That's right. Something from nothing. Wire and wood. You're beating on things and you're wire and wood, right? You're something from nothing. That's it. There's that metaphysical thing again. There's the hippie shit again.
I think that's like my favorite thing to do of all time, is just to create stuff that's not there. Music, or anything that I do in life, music is the best, because you get to put that out and everybody can hear that, or it's the ultimate expression and way to share a bit of yourself that you're not going to die doing, and anyone that gets discouraged about oh man, I gotta have my music and like nobody cares about it. Well, it takes kind of a long time for people to figure it out, and people's styles change and their music tastes change. So when you have something out, people might not understand it, and then 10 years later they're like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Or like what's happening with the Las Vegas right now. We put out all those records, we haven't been doing hardly anything yet. We're doing this HBO thing for James Gunn's new superhero thing, and Netflix wants the Bad Decision song for like something, that's like just came out of nowhere. And if we hadn't have done any of that stuff, or we'd been like, man, nobody wants our stuff, or like nobody's paying attention to it. It's like people are paying attention to it. It just, things have to circle around a little bit.
Yeah.
For either people to get it or for people just to actually
discover it.
What you are, or where you've been, and rediscover it.
Saban Films Saban Films just bought a Broken Teeth song from our first record, which came out
20
years ago.
Oh my God. I have that record.
During the lockdown, and it came out. I mean, it came out already because they put it in the movie and it came out.
Hell yeah, they did. That's awesome.
20. So exactly what you're saying. If you don't, you won't.
Yeah, you have to do it, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, you have a shelf life. You're supposed to be dead by 27. Like, what? That's ridiculous, because like I feel like I'm just kind of figuring the shit out now. I've been doing it, but now I'm like, ooh, I know how to do this better now, and seniority rules, man. It's cool.
Well, I wanna jump in and say, I love your whole thing. Your attitude is great, and you're really nice guy. And anyone who's ever met you and knows me, they say the same thing. I want to move forward, and I want to give you a chance to talk about your clothing line. And I know that it's not entirely a leap away from the music, because your clothing, the stuff that you create, reflects your music too. So tell us a little bit about where they can see stuff like that, and just find some of your instead of your sounds, by your music, but your creations.
I'll do a little shameless self-promotion. Why not?
Nothing shameless.
I'm pretty easy to find. It's just chadcherryclothing.com.
Yeah.
And I started it because I needed some shit to wear on stage.
There we go again. Right.
Couldn't find anything to wear. So I would Frankenstein everything to try to make it fit me or like look cool. And, had some time off here and there. So I decided to, I should probably start doing I should put another iron in the fire, basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I started it, and people started to enjoy it, and that fired me up even more. So I kept doing it, and people kept getting more into it. And then I get inspired by that, and I keep going. And it's all stuff that I want to wear. So I didn't know if that was going to work out or anything for everybody, but it seems to be okay. And I'm damn busy constantly. And it's a good thing.
And some of your clients, I mean, this is pretty impressive. I mean, you make it sound like you're very humble about it. It's just something you started on the side. But I mean, your clothes are being worn by members of the Alice Cooper band. And tell us about who else is out there wearing your clothes, and we're watching them on stage and we don't even know they're wearing Chad Cherry.
I just did Pink's new video. She's wearing all sorts of my stuff in that one.
Cool.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
and Cher was in the video too, so it's she's wearing my clothes and Cher's there. I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. How do I get something on Cher next?
Right.
You got to get some pink on Cher.
Exactly.
That sounds like a new porno movie or something. I'm sorry.
Sure does.
Yeah. Cher's got some pink on her somewhere. Oh.
So it goes from that level to also bands like Halloween and to Pink to Alice Cooper to I've done a lot of really cool metal bands and big bands, small bands, and then people that aren't even in bands that dress way crazier and cooler than people in bands.
So how does Alice Cooper discover you? Do you reach out to him, or does he find you? How does that relationship work? I mean, how does it go from your garage to Pink or Alice Cooper?
I'm going to give credit all to my friend Ryan Roxy for that one.
Nice.
He was the one that was kind of I want to wear some of this stuff. I got a tour coming out. And then I've kind of been doing a lot of his stuff for a long time. And he put me in the direction of Alice. And
he is standing right next to him.
Yeah.
He's standing right next to him. So, you know, Alice is probably looking over going, hey, what? How come my shit doesn't look that cool?
I got to hang out with Alice because of it, you know.
Oh, nice.
Tell us about
he's like always been my hero. And,
oh, yeah. One of mine. Really, one of ours.
Of course.
Yeah. He's one of those guys. Yeah.
I think he's probably, to me, like he's the alpha dude.
Yeah.
Ever since the Muppets, it's over, you know.
Yeah.
I remember that.
If you can hang yourself on stage and get into the living room with the Muppets that you know, like young people are watching, you pretty much covered the gamut. You pretty much know how to do that.
And when I was a kid, there was the neighbor kid. His mom would not let him see that stuff because Alice was that's too hardcore, you know. So you know, the evolution of shock is a lot different than it was in like the late 70s, early 80s, you know. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting to think like, oh my God, that was like such a big taboo back then.
Well, that's a learned thing. That young person friend of yours, mother, what she learned that was instated in her upbringing that anyone who wears melted eyeliner and has their hair disheveled and wearing a sequins dress and it's 1976 and they maybe have some drool coming out of their mouth, which sounds beautiful to us.
Oh, yeah.
Someone told her that's the devil and you need to stay away from that. So other people embrace, other people run away, and they're taught that.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Chad.
No, it's funny because the mom's kid, my friend, he ended up being the biggest, like craziest dude ever. You know, don't show him Alice Cooper. And he went off to do things that are way more crazier than Alice Cooper could have ever done.
That's exactly how that works.
Yeah.
Like the sheltered kid who's protected, they're the ones that are going to be drug dealers or worse. You know, and they're the one they're the ones that are going to be, you know, oh, don't show him Alice Cooper, keep him away from Kiss and you know, Iggy Pop and Elton John and Freddie Mercury and people like that, you know.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, they become what their parents were all afraid of the whole time.
That's how it goes.
And sometimes they become successful entrepreneurs and are artists or these beautiful, incredible, larger than life people, and their parents are like standing there holding like a sack of groceries going, it's either where did I go wrong? How do you have failed me? Oh, but I'll take the house you just bought me.
Right,
exactly.
Or can I have tickets to the show? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Here's backstage passes.
I hate you. I'm proud of you. I hate you. I'm proud of you. It's kind of
yeah.
What is up with that? Anyway, that's a whole other show. But
sure is.
There's a lot of truth.
So Chad, you're now obviously you grew up a rock and roll fan, but you're also very much into the horror movie genre, that sort of thing, and it's reflected, I think, in your clothing line and in your music. So, which came first for you, the horror movies or rock and roll?
I would say horror movies.
Yeah. Do you remember
Universal?
What was your first horror movie memory that, you know, kind of sucked you into the genre and made you a fan? And then right after that, tell me what was the first rock and roll moment that got you into rock? And then how'd you combine the two?
I would be Night of the Living Dead, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. I just remember hearing stories of my aunts and my mom going to the drive-in theater and just being terrified. And that was it. I'm like, I have to see this. And then one Christmas, I was probably a little too young, but my mom was cool. I had a Night of the Living Dead VHS tape that was in my stocking stuffer. And that was my Christmas. And that was like my next Christmas. And this Christmas, it'll be the Christmas after that. And I just got obsessed with it. And I don't know how that turned me into like my obsession with Kiss and Alice Cooper. And then from there, it went to like punk rock because I started to learn how to play music. and I started to rebel, and I started to question everything, like every boy does or should do, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was Night of the Living Dead, and either Alice Cooper and Kiss. I think it was Love It to Death. I remember just like the black and white cover and just thinking that these guys look like Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
That's a great connection. That's a great sort of like connection there that some might not even realize that, you know, the black and white thing and even similar, the makeup that the guys in the band and that Alice Cooper band are wearing.
Yeah. They look like glam rock ghouls.
Yeah,
exactly. Because of the black and white. If that would have been a color photo, eventually you would have, of course, embraced the whole idea of the Alice Cooper thing. But
see, now the color came with Kiss. That was like, oh, this is like that, but like an explosion.
Yeah, but I think not to throw rocks or anything, but I think even if, like, say, the first time you saw Kiss in a black and white photo, you still would have reacted the same way.
Oh yeah, Dressed to Kill.
Yeah. So, but I mean, even if the first record or even the Dynasty cover where their faces are real big, you know, they started to inject each member had their own color theme kind of thing.
Yep.
Even if that would have been black and white, I still would have. Where do I sign up? Where's the gooky punch I'm gonna drink? Where's the
seriously?
What worms do I have to eat? I'm ready.
And from those bands, that's how I started to judge the book by its cover. When I would go search for stuff, I'm like, I have no idea who GBH. I'm like, I don't know. That record cover looks pretty badass. I'm getting it. You know?
Yeah.
That's how it all came about.
And then eventually that kind of shit turns around and these people literally, or here I go hippie shit again, metaphysically become your friends here and here. Absolutely. And in reality, now you hang out with Alice Cooper sometimes, and you're like you and Ryan are close, and it's pretty weird. It's like with Nikki. Nikki's related to exactly what you're talking about.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
It's cool. Sometimes you have to like. I've done some stuff that I'm not going to say I took for granted, but I think everything just happened, and I have to like reflect on it and be like, whoa, I did that. Or somebody will say something, and it's like, man, I spent time with like these guys that you have on pedestals and whatnot, or they have like stories about it. And I like forget sometimes that I've been like blessed enough to like actually hang out and like create with some of these cats, you know? It's pretty cool.
Well, I think that I just want to say this again, you're a very important character to rock and roll. And I think that, you know, and you know that there's a lot of people like you and like us and like Dave and like, you know, who are, this is not a fight. It's easy for us to be this way.
That's in our blood.
I just think that and so just continue to keep being Chad Cherry, please.
I don't know any better.
Hey, perfect. I have a question.
You guys are like boosting my ego up here. Stop it.
Well, I have a question that's honest, and I'm a huge fan of Missing Persons, and I was wondering if you like the Missing Persons.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like they were one of those bands in the early 80s that became this, you know, them, and then like even weirder, like that band Japan. It's kind of proggy and classical mixed weird, and then Missing Persons were like this pop band, and you know, you're talking about some of your projects and some of your music. I felt like you were sort of talking about this electronic, it's still a rock band and even punk rock sounding, but it had all these other sort of monikers as well, just because of the climate change of music and whatever. But the clothing, just everything about them, they just look like an explosion went off in a makeup factory. You know, Sephora, everybody just, you know, did a bunch of drugs and had a rave inside of a Sephora store with 9 Inch Nails on 10 or something. And they made a pop band out of it, Missing Persons. And like, Destination Unknown, Mental Hopscotch. I think that Walking in LA. I feel like me too. Those songs are similar to some of the things that you're talking about. But you go back. You like heavy metal. You like punk rock. Yeah. So I just feel like I had to ask you, Missing Persons, yay or nay, and you say yay.
Yay, hell yeah,
yeah,
hell yay.
She was just like this. I don't know why no one ever talks more about her.
Dale, yeah.
You see those like videos of her, and she looks like Nina Hagen before Lady Gaga, before any of that stuff,
Yeah. Over the top.
She just had a cool presence, and she could sing, and it was weird, and it was kick ass.
Yeah, right. I hear things about her, not to make this be about her or Missing Persons, but I hear that she's a little difficult to work with. Now, I wouldn't know firsthand, but I just hear things that she's runs a tight ship, will fly off the handle at someone if it's not her way, and things like that. I get that, but
yeah, I mean, you gotta have a little bit of boss in you, I guess.
Yeah.
I just work with my friends all the time, and like you gotta just work with your friends. Yeah. I think then you got a good team, then you don't have to get frustrated or pissed off. You're always gonna get frustrated and pissed off, just a little bit less.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Maybe she needs to work with her friends more.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, since we were on the subject of horror movies earlier, I know this was a big deal for you, and I just want you to spend a couple minutes telling us, one of your videos, the Las Vegas, you had Sybil Danning starring in your video, and she is best known as being sort of a B-movie actress from, especially in the 70s. I know she did Reform School Girls with Wendy O. Williams.
Oh yeah.
And I think she did Chained Heat and some other. I'm not a movie aficionado. You guys are, but anyway, she's a big deal in that circle, and I know that had to be a major score for you, being the fan of that genre that you are. So, how did that come about? How did you get her to be in your video?
I just kind of like. This is crazy because I don't really do social media a ton. I do the Instagram thing, but maybe 2000 and I don't even know when the other side came out, whatever year that was. I saw her on Twitter, and I just messaged her from there, and we just became physical friends.
Yeah.
From there on out, and she flew out, and she was here for like a couple days, and yeah, we're just good friends, and I'm good friends with her husband. And I saw her last year at Monster Palooza, and we hung out the whole time. Awesome. She's a legend, man.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because it's a big deal for people that are, that are into that genre and know who she is. It's pretty cool that you had her in your video, and the video is great. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Other Side. It's by the Las Vegas. It's a really cool video starring Sybil Danning.
Yeah.
Chad, real quick before we let you go, I need to know, when can we expect the next Claws album?
Well, we got 14 songs in the can.
Wow.
As of like 3 days ago, almost final mix, couple tweaks here and there.
Okay.
Probably do like maybe a 10-song record. And hopefully, I don't have a timeline on it. I'm just waiting for whoever is foolish enough to want to pay for it.
Well, it's close to the finish line, it sounds like. So I'm excited about that, because the last one, again, it's called No Connection. I loved it, and I think our listeners will dig it too. I've turned a few people onto it, and they're like, "Oh my God, dude, thank you so much for this. This is awesome." So
before Dave takes us out, I just want to tell everyone listening that it's been an honor to talk to Chad today, and it's awesome to call you a friend. Who is very unafraid. You are unafraid. And that is the highest compliment I can give anyone. Because a lot of people are shadowed by their fears, and you are not.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being with us today.
Anything coming from you, Jason, thank you. You could tell me to jump off a bridge, and I would probably do it.
He tells me that once a week, and I still haven't done it. So.
No, Dave,
Awesome.
don't jump.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Chad, I echo Jason's sentiments. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for being such an active part of the arts, rock and roll, your clothing line, just being a cool dude. There's so much to like about you, and it's no wonder we're friends. So keep doing what you do, and I'm still here in Austin. So next time you drive through and you need some barbecue, just give me a shout.
I'm crashing in the big room.
All right. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Talk Louder podcast. I'm Metal Dave Glessner on behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster, our very special guest today, Chad Cherry. We thank you all for listening to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.